NBC News Radio.
The only station I listen to.
1050 a.m.
Welcome back to Money Talk. I'm Jesse Perez, and I'm Aaron Michael Sanchez. All right, Aaron. So that was great. Yeah, content management, I think businesses don't understand it quite yet because they're like, well, I sell a product. Why do I need content? Exactly. But what he said was very important. I hope you take that away as a listener. If you have a particular thing that you're trying to sell, you want to find where those people are at. And if you know what they're talking about, you can find them. And I think that's the biggest thing about social media. You can find your customer, let them know you're there. They now know you're there. Discovery. Now you engage with them, and then you create a relationship via social media.
You're absolutely right. And I think, another great lesson is that these consumers really appreciate these companies giving them access to what's important to them. So for example, we were looking at some of our numbers earlier today, and a vast majority, over 50%, 53% of our followers have entrepreneurship as something that's of important to them.
Right.
Others it's marketing, others it's leadership. And so if you're a business and you have a following, you know exactly the type of person, the type of consumer that you appeal to. Find more of those folks and then find content that fills that need for them, that gives them the warm and fuzzy. They will then appreciate what you've done for them, giving them good information and stuff that they're looking for, stuff that they don't have to go out and find on their own. And, particularly using platforms such as this, they can find the articles that are trending, which, presumably means they're good articles,
right,
worth sharing. And then you can pass that stuff on to your clients and prospective clients and let the social selling process begin.
And again, I think there's something that was amiss there that we didn't really cover, but you should always understand. There's more information about what you like out there. So you can technically profile a person based on their likes. And this is a demographic that people aren't really talking about, but this is what Facebook already does. They know what you're inclined to like based on your likes. They know what kind of posts you like. So it's important for the business owner, if they know how to tap into that, get a portion of that and say, okay, this person likes this type of video or this type of music or this type of product, they'll most likely be interested in my type of product.
You're absolutely right. And
targeted.
So so we're talking about content, and we're talking about more specifically, some of the stuff that's out there already. But what I want to get into talking about now is creating, if you're a business owner, creating your own content. And then how do you go about creating content that's shareable?
And that looks beautiful.
And that looks awesome. So on the phone, we've got Miles Dinsmoor, the CEO of ModOp. He is joining us to talk a little bit about digital advertising and digital marketing and what business owners can do to sort of move further along that content spectrum, whether you're a small, medium-sized, or a large business. So, Miles Dinsmoor, welcome to Money Talk.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Miles, I'll say the reason he flubbed on it was because we're looking at your graphics here.
Yes, it's amazing.
And we're being blown away. You've got EA Sports, Far Cry, Unleash the Speed, XCOM, Enemy Within. We're looking at all this and we're just being blown away with all this content.
This is amazing. So Modus Operandi, you've got my favorite sport, FIFA. You got FIFA 2013. Take it from the top. Can you sort of walk us through the launch and what you guys did, and then how you got yourselves in a position to represent such great brands, and then how you create this incredibly cool content?
Sure. I'd love to. So first of all, no worries on the name fumble. I think people frequently aren't quite sure what to call us. The business is Modus Operandi, but we actually go by ModOp or ModOp, and even the pronunciation of that sometimes varies. In terms of what we do, as you mentioned, we do work a lot with video game clients. And some of that comes to our agency just through the history of some of the partners. But what we found is, the game consumer is the perfect consumer for digital advertising because they're already, natively engaging with the product, and that particularly when it comes to advertising video games, you have to give that consumer something that they're going to find of value. They're very incredibly savvy. They're incredibly digitally native, and you have to build campaigns and experiences that work around those consumer traits. So what? Sorry.
Well, I was going to say apart from that, I've never worked in the business in the trade of advertising and marketing per se, but it seems to me that it's also a very demanding segment.
Yeah, it is. It's incredibly demanding. They know, video game consumers know what they're looking for. They know what they like, and they're also incredibly active on social media. And in sometimes not always positively. So you have to make sure that you're giving them a premium experience, and that you're really answering their questions about the product, right? That you're giving them what they want in terms of new features and gameplay and all that. What we found for us is that those traits, while they're enhanced in video game consumers, they're kind of growing traits that all consumers are sharing, particularly when they are interacting with brands online, right? Online isn't a place where you are necessarily going to be able to fool people or, just send them a canned, message and expect that that's going to necessarily move the needle, right? You need to be, I think your previous guest was talking about how you need to make sure that you're giving them content that they care about, that gives them value in their personal lives, and that and that they can that they feel comfortable interacting with.
Miles, I have to say on your content, you are not just doing the video portion of it, you're doing the mobile, you're doing the social interaction. And I know mobile's really ahead of what they thought it was going to be. I mean, YouTube numbers were saying that mobile videos were going to be seen, they far have surpassed where people are watching their content. I think it's going to be close to 70% by 2017, I believe. And so you're creating this content, and then you're creating the social aspect of it. I'm looking right now at Spot the Spot of your GE campaign. What does it go? How do they come to you, and then you transform it into what's the best interactive social media campaign that you've done?
Yeah, so you're really hitting on a lot of the things that are sort of overlapping, some major trends that affect what we do and affect how all brands are working online. Mobile is obviously the biggest, I think, the biggest thing to change the marketplace, particularly with advertising, in the last since the internet itself, right? And then you've got video, which is the top performing content no matter what channel, but particularly on mobile. And then you've got social media, right? So, we want to make sure that everything that we do hits at that confluence of mobile, social, and storytelling, and brand storytelling.
Now, here's my question on this. I'm getting very excited about this, obviously. You work with very large businesses. What's the small when we talk about small business, do you talk to small businesses?
We do. We do from time to time. I mean, our business is much more focused with national brands and, national advertising campaigns. Frequently, obviously, that also means, large budgets and media spend that's driving consumers to these experiences. And then, building out the social strategy and the content strategy that's, expanding it into earned channels from there.
Miles,
but that said, small businesses, I think, what we do, I think applies or can apply to small businesses as well, insofar as, we think that every campaign has to start with basic research on who the consumer is, what their digital behavior is, and how that consumer segment interacts with content online. It's moving so fast that I think everybody has to really take a good look at at not just who they're trying to sell to, but what exactly those people are doing. Are they clear they're probably on Facebook. Almost everyone's on Facebook. But what are they doing on Facebook? Are they creating content? Are they sharing content? Are they commenters? And then you can tailor your work to suit that need.
And that's a great point. And what you kind of guessed my next question, because it was, as the strategic leader for the organization for Modus Operandi, it's your responsibility to sort of stay ahead of the curve. And this curve is one that's constantly changing. It's getting steeper and steeper sometimes as technologies evolve. What recommendations would you have for entrepreneurs in general in terms of just how to keep your finger on the pulse? Because it seems to me in your line of work, it's very easy to be successful with one campaign, but you've demonstrated over a fairly short amount of time success after success after success. And so obviously, you found the way to sort of keep your finger on that pulse. What recommendations would you have for other entrepreneurs in terms of how to stay on top of it so that you go with the flow?
It's a great question. I think for us, actually we I'd like to take credit for it, but we have a very robust strategy and analytics team that's run by Angel Evan, one of our partners. And to us, the truth is always in the data, right? And I think any entrepreneur now, the great news is, these platforms, like Facebook, like Twitter, and of course Google and Google Analytics have all become so robust, and there's so many ways to get at that data that it's easier than ever in some ways for any business owner to really get a pretty good picture of who their consumer is. The trickier thing, I think, is right now we're awash in data, and there's almost a glut of information. So it's knowing which data points to pay attention to, and which ones matter and which ones are noise. Right? It's the signal to noise ratio that I think can get a little bit tricky.
Yeah, no, and you're right. We are, when we prepare for this show, we go through and we say, gee, what's out there? What do we need to talk about? What are folks asking about? And every area that we start to research, there are millions of articles on a particular topic. And so there really is an abundance of information. And so being able to sort of, work your way through that is critical. So the next question for you then is, as the strategic, it looks like we're playing one of your pieces of content here. So here, this is your FIFA 13 ad for Spock Sports, and
or for EA Sports, probably.
And this is.
I'm sorry, I clicked on the reel and it went to the reel. I apologize for that, but it's awesome. I mean, you could tell that you've implemented the music. You had high energy on these. On these content creations that you've made. And I think what we've really learned, especially with this audience that we have nowadays, everything is fast. If you don't get them in the less than 6 seconds, you probably lost them. Yeah,
that's actually another trend that's accelerating almost every year. Yeah, I mean, even when we started ModUp, I think the rule of thumb was to try and keep most content to 30 seconds or less. Now, really, 15 seconds is the max. And we've seen data that most consumers have made their opinion by the third or fourth second of when any ad you're doing. So, but at the same time, what we find critical, particularly if you're going to build advocates and fans that are truly engaged, is actually video completion. That data point is actually more telling than any in terms of what whether or not that person is likely to share your content or spread it, is whether or not they finish the video to the end. So getting their attention, right up front is important, but then keeping it over the length of any piece is just as critical.
Yeah, I just can't believe the limited amount of time. I mean, we really are becoming an ADD society because, I mean, if you've got 3-4 seconds to make your pitch, I mean, I can't even tell you the name of the song in 3 to 4 seconds, and much less when you're dealing with something that's so multimedia. So it seems like your business is really becoming more difficult. Now, tell me, things have moved fast. Where do you see then digital advertising and all things of a similar media going in the future then?
It's a great point. I wish I had a crystal ball, a perfect crystal ball. But I think what we're seeing right now is, again, like the acceleration of a lot of the trends that really have started. I think with the explosion of mobile and social, over the past 5 years, you're seeing more and more consumers, migrating to mobile devices and tablets and even, SVOD services, like Netflix for their entertainment. Which makes the audiences increasingly fractured. But then for brands to make sure that they're capturing audiences and optimizing them in all channels, you need a pretty cohesive ecosystem that's working across social and across websites, and that the websites have to be optimized to work on all devices, and I think in the next generation also be viewable on SVOD platforms. So the one constant is change in this business, and the one thing that I think that we have seen consistently throughout the history of model, but even through the history of advertising, is that it's additive, right? Nothing ever really goes away; it just keeps getting added onto, and that. And then, that gets incredibly complex. And, even the biggest brands really can't participate in all areas equally at the same time. So it's making sure that which channels are your audiences on the most. What are they doing there? And then picking and choosing your strategy accordingly.
Yeah, well, and Aaron apologized for this, but if you would indulge me for another second or two, I love the sound of your piece here on the website on MODOP, MODOP. And so for our listeners, here's another 2 seconds of it. Hang on a quick sec.
Sure.
And so this is high energy, and this is exactly what we're talking about when we say, you've got 2 to 3 seconds to capture attention. I mean, it's in your face. Obviously you're going for a particular demographic with this, getting them excited, getting them up, getting their blood pumping, and with the anticipation that they'll follow through and listen to the entire message. And so this is exciting. This is fun for me. I know when I see these videos on the internet, I watch them over and over and over again because they really do get me. It ties in the emotional aspect in addition to the information that's being conveyed. And so, so it's more of a complete package. And so I think you guys have done a spectacular job with this over at Modus Operandi. And I just kind of wanted to give you sort of the props because I think you're not one of the bigs, you're not one of the majors, but you've managed to compete in that space and really bring in some names that that the big guys would be jealous of.
And still a pioneer right. in this digital age. I mean, we're setting, I believe, a trend for the future to come, which is this animations that you guys have. What do you edit on, by the way, just as a technical question?
Oh, primarily Final Cut Pro. Yeah, I mean it's a great point you guys make, and thank you again for the kind words. But when we started ModUp, one of the things that we saw happening, which again is just accelerating, is what used to be thought of as digital advertising was typically banner ads, right? Which have always been kind of the bane of the digital advertising model. Not that they're not important, they are, but I think they've always had a bad rap in terms of what you could do in them. But we kind of brought to it when we started, like wanting to take a broadcast sensibility and a premium, creation sensibility to all aspects of, the digital ecosystem, because more and more consumers are spending more and more time there, and it should be just as considered as any broadcast spot in terms of the quality you put into it, if not more so, because it's also interactive, so people will run it back and they'll play it again, and you have to make sure that the quality is there. And
absolutely,
we put that in everything we do.
It's truly entertainment. Well, Miles Dinsmoor, CEO of Modus Operandi, or modop.com, thank you for joining us on Money Talk this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll be back with more Money Talk after these messages.